Welcome to this edition of Silver Sneakers Boom Muscle. If you saw my last video, you'll remember that I've taken up the sport of powerlifting with the idea that in the senior games, senior Olympics, I'm going to add this sport to my other sports, typically shot put and discus, and previously had a dream of doing a couple sprints like a 50 or 100 yard or 400 meter run. I'm not sure if I'm going to work on those these years. But so as far as the powerlifting, 3 sports, squat, bench press, and deadlift. So there's a lot of specific rules for this, which I'm starting to learn, and a lot of training techniques. At 70 plus, nearly 71, I'm in a category they call M4, which has some specific rules, although they're not really that different from the general rules. So what I'm doing twice a week, I'm working on lifting heavier weights, ones I'm maybe not quite used to, but hopefully not that are heavy enough to cause any injuries, with the idea over the course of year and a half that I can get strong enough to compete in those games and not embarrass myself. So today is one of those days where I'm going to go through those 3 lifts and demonstrate some warm-ups and some modifications I have to do at this point, with the idea that eventually I can do the lifts in a standard manner. Warm up for the squat. I'm going to do a couple sets of box squats with a kettlebell, or I call these goblet squats. Just sitting down and coming up. Trying to keep my back upright, my core engaged, and warming up the muscles. For the next set, I'm going to add a step, which will give me a greater range of motion in my hips, with the idea of trying to get my thigh parallel to the floor or slightly below my knee. You can always modify these by not having a weight or doing a lighter weight. One reason I actually sit on the platform is to train myself to keep my core engaged or braced at that bottom part, which is very important for doing a squat, that you don't relax when you get to that bottom position. Have your core braced, ready to explode the weight upward. Another modification for this activity is I started to wear a knee sleeve, as you can see here, which gives a little support to the knees and increases the warmth in the joint, which can make it less uncomfortable and maybe improve that range of motion a bit. In competition, they have to be neoprene, and these are this sort of mixed fabric, which is more comfortable. For my next progression in the squat, I move to one of these bars with this offset, which is better for guys like me who have a lot of stiffness in my shoulders, but allows me to get a good range of motion with trying to keep my core stable and avoiding bending my back or other problems. So I use this to, again, warm up and to work on technique. It weighs about 70 pounds, so it's a bit of a heavier weight than the goblet squat. Next, I'll add some weight to the sides to start working on full strength. So with the weight on the bar, I always want to make sure there's a clamp on in case I lose balance and the weight doesn't slide off, which throws the bar to the other side. In powerlifting or heavy weightlifting, I always recommend a significant rest between sets, 3-5 minutes or more. So for my workout, I don't just do consecutive sets to save time. I move to the other two lifts. Moving on to the bench press, a couple factors. First of all, there's the fear factor of taking a heavy bar down to your chest and pressing it up from there. So I want to start off with a good warm-up before challenging myself. I like to use like these TRX bands and then just go through the range of motion, nice and slow. You can always modify this by standing more upright. What I like with these is they're quite unstable with a lot of little movement, which is going to engage all the stabilizing muscles and without overtaxing the strength component. Often on the machines or bench press, they have safety bars, which it's hard to get that full range of motion, particularly towards your chest. You can also replace that with a band, which is a nice alternative. Next, moving on to dumbbell press. You can either do these with one dumbbell in one hand or two in both. I like to start with one in one hand. The reason for it, it can be pretty hard to get the dumbbell into the proper position, or if it's too heavy and you have to drop it, it's much easier to do if you have the other hand available to assist. Let me get this platform flatter and closer. So before laying back, I've got the dumbbell on my knee. That way I can kick it up to get it in the proper position. Change the angle. like to practice my breathing with this exercise. So inhale at the start, brace my core, and exhale as I explode upward. Another component in the bench press is to give a slight arch in your lumbar spine. Keep your buttocks on the support, your upper shoulders and neck on the support, but you can arch a little bit. Most of us are stronger in sort of a decline press than an incline press. So you'll see a lot of heavy bench lifters with a significant arch in their back trying to get that decline position. I think for a senior, just trying to be in a neutral position on the support, with maybe that little arch in the lumbar spine is probably ideal. Progression, you can always go to heavier dumbbells. For my next progression, I'm going to go to a Smith machine to do a straight barbell press with a weight I know I can lift safely. So I call this a Smith machine. There are different brands. This one happens to be a Life Fitness. Smith is a different brand. They all work similarly to allow for a two posts to guide the bar, safety, the support, and that. I like to set it up with the angle of the device going towards my head, so when I lower it, it's a bit lower on my body towards my chest. Set it up properly. I've got a flat bench. Lay down on that. The bar is pretty much right above my nose. That's too close to my chin, so I'll move up a little bit. I want it to come down somewhere just between my neck and my upper chest. See if the safeties, so I got the safeties here. So when I take my weight off, it's just touching my chest. So then, as I said, I can load it with some weight I know I can get to for my initial set. The bar itself weighs somewhere around 20 pounds or so, depending on the machine. I've seen them as light as 12 pounds up to even closer to a standard Olympic bar of 45. This one's about 20 pounds. So position myself where before it was right over my nose. It's too close to my chin, so it can back up. Whereas I lower my hand, it's kind of where I want the bar to end up. So I'm going to lift the bar, log out, get my good breath, core stabilization, lower to my chest, pause, and push back up. Couple things to think about as I'm pushing. I want to have my feet push hard into the floor. Shoulders push hard into the bench. And my elbows are about 45 degrees away from midline. I don't want them out further, as that puts too much stress on the shoulders. Can be a bit of stress on the elbows, so kind of limit the number of repetitions when it's particularly heavy. And I'm trying to keep my wrists locked. Some people bend their wrist back. It's not possible for me. I have too much arthritis, but I think my strongest position is straight. That's why a lot of people, when they're lifting heavier, put on wrist straps to give some support to their wrist. I'm going to go up by weight. When I'm trying to increase strength, I'm not going to do a huge number of repetitions, somewhere between 5 and 8 or so. Try and get at least 3. If I can't get 3, then I'm getting close to my max. So we'll see how we do today. Same position. Go higher. Feet flat on the floor. Practice pushing. Again, getting used to a fear factor. On this machine, I can lower it all the way to where it touches my chest. That's where the safeties are. But mentally, I don't want to do that. I want to keep it a little above my chest. So I'm going to continue to work on that. We'll do one final set. Add maybe like 10 pounds on each side. In strengthening, the experts often recommend somewhere around a 3-minute rest between lifts. That's another thing I need to work on. I have a tendency to rush. Maybe give myself 30 seconds to a minute. As I get more involved in this, I'll try and be a little more compulsive. One strategy to work with that is to do something different during that rest period, different set of muscles, like moving on to a Romanian deadlift or something lower body like calf exercises, something that's really allowing the muscles used in this to rest, but still working to keep my heart rate up a little bit, and to me not just take an extreme amount of time to get through a workout. So one last set, let's try and do at least 3. Okay. So that concludes what I'm going to do for this workout for bench press. Then I'm going to move on to some exercises for deadlift. Warm-up I like to do for deadlift is a tire flip. Deadlift, emphasis on the posterior legs, back, and core. And the tire flip is a nice way to do that. Important to keep your back neutral, lift from the lower body. There's a pull involved with the arms, but you want the lift to come from your legs. Just a tip before moving on to deadlift. I found that if I load the bar with these plates, which have a little bit wider diameter than others, then any additional plates I put on it, if it's resting on the floor, are much easier to take off because this holds them up maybe half an inch or so. Another warm-up I like to do before doing Romanian deadlifts or full deadlifts is a farmer's carry. So I grab some plates, one in each hand, and spend a little bit of time just walking around the gym. I like the farmer's carries. It gets my heart rate up a little bit. It works a little bit on grip strength and getting my shoulders warmed up. When I'm ready to start lifting for the deadlift, I start with a Romanian deadlift, which is a partial range of motion of a deadlift. Here I have a bar loaded up with a couple of weights. So I'm going to start with a few Romanian deadlifts. You'll sometimes hear this referred to as a straight leg deadlift. The straight leg deadlift, really the knees aren't bent, and it's mostly just a posterior upper body move. I think it's a little more hazardous for risking some back strain, and the Romanian deadlift is more of a partial deadlift move, and so more beneficial for the actual movement. So I'm going to brace my core, my hips are bent, my knees are bent, good strong grip. It's important with either the Romanian deadlift RDL or full deadlift that on every single lift you're focused, you concentrate, perfect form, you brace, you're breathing. All that's very important because when you start lifting heavy weights, it's pretty easy to strain a little muscle in your lower back or elsewhere, which can set you back for a significant length of time. So preparing for the regular deadlift, I've put on, and you can see the little gap between the outer and the inner plate allows this one to ride freely, very easy to take off. It gets more significant when you start piling multiple plates on there, getting up to hundreds of pounds. If you don't have this larger plate, you can rest it on a small plate or something else to raise that inner plate up a little bit. Because just lifting up, if you have 4 or 5 plates on there, lifting up the end by itself can be very taxing. So preparing for a few deadlifts for working on my strength. Again, as I said before, have to fully focus, get in a good position, have the bar really over the middle of my foot. Then down. My hips and my knees are going to move simultaneously. I'm going to pull up a little bit on the bar, get the slack out of it, and raise. Again, each repetition goes from the weight dead on the floor to up. So you always take at least a couple breaths in between each lift. Again, that focus is really important. So for a good workout, you might do 3 to 5 lifts per set, 2 to 3 sets. As I'm once a week or so, I'll start to increase the weight on each set until I max out. For just a workout day, I'm going to keep it at this, which is a comfortable, maybe beginning weight for me. Alternatives to a straight bar deadlift are using dumbbells. Some facilities even have a machine you can load up that is similar to a deadlift. This gym doesn't have that. There's a hex bar which puts the weight more in the central of your body. They're both totally fine. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll continue to post as I go through this journey of participating in powerlifting at 71. Thank you. Bye.